The Book of Alternatives to Violence project around the world was launched during the EDUCON Conference that took place last week. And joining us in studio is one of the co-contributors, that's Helen Vale, who's a former senior lecturer in literature, English, in the English department at the University of Namibia. Today she's a freelance editor and trainer, and she joins us here on NAMIBIA Connects to, of course, speak on alternatives to violence project, just tying in with our earlier conversations regarding suicide, as well as our crime report, and of course that earlier interview with Stephen Tsara. Ms. Vale, very good day to you. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Or this afternoon, rather.
Yeah, this afternoon.
Flies,
nice to be here.
Great stuff. I was just mentioning about how all of our conversations seem to tie in with each other. Just talk to us about, the earlier conversations with you made of it. And of course,
I was really impressed. I thought it was done deliberately. But I see it's synchronicity.
Yes.
Because murder and suicide are obviously harming someone else.
Absolutely.
And harming yourself. And that police officer earlier was talking about that.
Yes.
And then with Stephen in London, talking about transitional justice, and then saying civil society must be involved. Well, we are an example of civil societies around the world being involved in a practical way with individuals, having workshops on learning and practicing alternatives to violence.
Yes. When we talk about this Alternatives to Violence project, in essence, what is it, Tim?
Okay. It began about 50 years ago in Greenhaven Prison in New York, and it spread to over 80 countries throughout the world. And it's basically holding workshops on community building, communication, and transforming conflict. And they've been offered in correctional facilities, schools, regions that have experienced extreme conflict, refugee camps, and the general community. So it's got a dynamic approach to experiential learning that appeals to both adult learners and young people. So I would say AVP, Alternatives to Violence Project, has changed the lives of hundreds of young people in 80 countries of the world. And this also links in with your logo and your name of your program, which is
NAMIBIA Connects.
Which is NAMIBIA Connects. And today, I'm showing you through the book how Namibia has connected with these other countries which are also implementing an AVP workshop program.
Talking about this book, of course, you have it here with you, and there's a chapter on Namibia specifically that you've contributed, co-authored on,
Yeah, I authored alone.
Talk to us,
Okay, talk to us about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to admit, this comes from 4 years ago, because the book's been a major project. It's got 5 authors, or editors from around the world, and it's got, I think it's got, I don't know how many chapters. It's got a lot of.
To our viewers.
It's got lots of chapters. I think it's, I can't quite remember how many chapters, but I think it's got maybe, I don't know. It's a lot of chapters by many different authors. And it just came out about 2 weeks ago. And I think the opportunity to have it launched at the university conference on education recently at NIPAM was a wonderful opportunity. And the person that launched it, well, the person that spoke about it was Professor Vaughan John. Now, he's at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and he has just been promoted to a professorship and a chair of peace education and justice education. Now, how does that not interlink with what was said by Stephen about this transitional justice project?
Peace education, justice education, sounds like a new thing, especially in the Namibian context. Just talk to us about how it's been taking hold here.
Okay, I came to Namibia 33 years ago, and I and a colleague, she was head of psychology at the university, and myself, we both had a Quaker interest in, which is a religious grouping that's always had what's called a peace testimony. And we saw the high levels of violence, even then, in 2006. And we thought, what can we do? And by coincidence, we both had a taster session of this Alternative to Violence project, just maybe an hour or so, in South Africa, separately. And we said, it's a great workshop, it's a great experience. Why don't we try and set it up and invite NGOs and government departments to see who's interested? Now, from that and the interest that was shown, including the correctional facilities, which is very important.
Yes.
And also getting funding from First National Bank, for which we're very grateful. We set it up, we trained about 30 facilitators over the years.
Fantastic.
And because my particular interest was in correctional facilities and working with prisoners, inmates rather, we got going. So AVP has taken off, and we were working with religious groups, Philippi Trust, Osire refugees, inmates, but it could be anybody.
Yeah.
But then along came COVID in March 2020, and that was the last workshop I gave with my co-facilitator, because it's based on workshops.
Okay.
But then we also don't train or facilitate alone.
Yes.
We facilitate with
Together,
others.
yes.
So maybe two others, so with the three of us, and maximum of 20 participants.
Nice.
And it takes about 2 days.
Yeah.
And they all enjoy it and learn a lot, and so do we. We learn a lot.
I see those huge smiles on their faces right now. Certainly. And I want to underscore the emphasis on correctional facilities and the issue of rehabilitation. Talk to us about that particular focus, yes.
Okay. So how that's relevant is that Namibia, post-independence, because we're a post-conflict society, wanted to change its system of punitive, retributive justice to rehabilitation, transforming the inmates. So when they go out, they are not going to be recidivists and come back in.
Yes.
So there's been a whole interest and a policy change within the correctional facilities.
Yeah.
Now, one of our early facilitators, he was very young then. It's now 16 years later.
Yeah.
Abraham Congo was a case management officer at Rundu, and it was because of Abraham that we were able to do workshops with younger offenders who were only there for about 5 years. Yeah. And that was the start, and he helped us with the logistics. So a few of us concentrated on inmates because we felt if we can change attitudes and give skills in dealing with conflict, it will really help and have an impact on the wider society.
Wonderful.
But the thing is, with COVID, we haven't, it's been a challenge because you couldn't go into prisons. They were closed to outsiders.
Yes.
Also, so we've been a bit dormant, but we're trying to revive AVP along with something called the Peace Centre in Rhino Park. And we're having discussions with our former facilitators and key people to see how we can revive it, because violence has gone up in Namibia.
Absolutely.
And we really need to have this program, which is enjoyable, believe it or not, even though it's serious.
Very much indeed. Just for our viewers' sake, and also for my own interest's sake, when we speak about alternatives to violence and unpacking topics and subjects within that broader topic, what do we speak of here?
We speak of the key pillars for the topics or themes in the workshop of Alternative to Violence Project are affirmation, communication, including active listening, community, cooperation, including building trust. So then the last one is resolving conflicts. So we have activities, they're about 2-hour sessions, and we have a variety of things. It could be individual work, it could be pair work or groups, plenary discussions, and very importantly, what we call light and livelies, where it's like a game, but it's fun. It's fun, but it changes the atmosphere, the energy within the room, because you can have sadness, you can have remorse, you can have serious feelings, then you can have laughter. And we need it to be a mixture. And we need it to be a safe space for people to open up.
Very much so. And I see you have also guidelines here that you probably use within the workshops,
And we can call that the transforming, can you showing it to, the transforming power mandala. But you could call it Ubuntu mandala. Ubuntu, ngu muntu, nga bantu. A person is a person because of other people. And there's various elements there, and we talk about how you can transform a situation from potential violence to more peaceful, and it's expecting the best, think before reacting, ask for a non-violent path, caring for others, respect for self. And I just want to add something there. When we talk about think before reaction, when I've worked with inmates, that's the one, when I say, okay, which of these we put them on the ground and say, okay, guys, go to the one that if you'd done that, you wouldn't be here.
Think before reaction.
And it was think before reaction. The majority go because they didn't
think
they had anger. So anger management is also an issue we deal with.
Very much.
There's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of, but now there's a lot of post the offence and being incarcerated. There's a lot of remorse and trying to be a better person.
Very much indeed. Wonderful stuff, Ms. Vale. Very interesting. I love the approach. Talk to us about, what are some of the hindrances to overcoming violence in our society. We see more and more cases on a spiral when we speak of gender-based violence cases, when we speak of murders, attempted murders, all of that, suicide cases, etc. Yes, we've done well through, initiatives such as the AVP, etc. But yet, for some reason, our society seems to continue to, veer towards the wrong side of life.
Okay. On that, I think we are a post-conflict society. So you had systemic violence perpetrated by the colonialists and the apartheid regime prior to independence. Then you had a 26-year liberation war. Conflict, so violence and conflict have been in the background of Namibia, even coming to independence. Now, post-independence, the causes I can see at a more general level are, and we discuss this, but we concentrate more on personal things, are, just trying to think, many. The fact that it's a very unequal society with this 68% Gini coefficient. So it's one of the most, after South Africa, I think it's the second most unequal. So poverty, I think drug and alcohol abuse, I think absent fathers often, and lacking good male role models, and now unemployment, and this high graduate rate and high youth unemployment. And also the industrial base in Namibia isn't developed enough to take in more employment. So it's multi-faceted. And I think lack of, for men, and maybe for women as well, lack of communication skills and in speaking, communicating with respect to your partner and being immediately angry and maybe being drunk, possibly, and also the whole patriarchal attitudes of many Namibian men don't help, because if they see women as a chattel, that's going to be a major problem.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's multi-faceted, the response to that question, because there are many different reasons.
Very much indeed. Ms. Vale, just in closing, of course, what more can we do? Talk to us about, the future of the AVP project here.
Okay, just thinking, what can we do? We can have more workshops and more, I think, time for quiet reflection, time for, obviously you need the jobs, you need income, you need to deal with give more housing and improve our educational system so you don't have, I know that there's no violent, there's corporal punishment is outlawed in the schools, but you still have bullying, student on pupil on pupil. So the things are needed at every level. But I think if you have respect for self and caring for the other, and through the techniques we teach, which are I messages, how to deal when someone's rude to you, and to be aware of your own conflict style. Like mine is avoidance, so I avoid violence, but that doesn't help. It doesn't give a win-win situation. So to be aware of your own conflict style, to practice, we have role plays practicing potentially difficult situations and how inmates can deal with that. And we do that in all the workshops. So the way forward, hopefully, we'll get more funding, because we're all volunteers. And I think also in our teaching style, it's not teaching, it's facilitating, it's not lecturing. We're all learners. And we create a safe space for participants, whether they're refugees, and we learn from them as well. So hopefully we can go forward. We're having a big discussion this weekend of how to take AVP, resuscitate it and bring it forward. And it's part of the civil society part of transitional justice as well. So it links in with your previous interview.
Conversation, Ms. Vale, a huge pleasure to meet you and of course engage with you on this very topical matter. Good luck with reviving, with resuscitating the AVP project. Certainly it has had positive impact, and we can't wait to see that continued positive impact here.
Thank you, Ndashishi.
There you have it, Helen Vale. She is an anti-violence activist talking to us about the Alternatives to Violence project. of course, a project that has been running in Namibia. She's been involved with that project since the 90s, am I correct?
Yeah, when was it? No, it was 2006. But I've always been interested.
You've always been interested,
anti-violence.
yes. So since 2006, she's been involved with it, of course, also contributing there to that book, which was launched during last week's Education Conference. She has authored a chapter on Namibia when it comes to alternatives to violence. And of course, has just been talking to us this morning about that and the workshops she's conducted in our correctional facilities. Well, on that note, from my